New York City in the not-too-distant future. The city is in shambles. Once a vibrant city, it has now become a dystopian nightmare. People are homeless. They're begging for help, for housing, for food, and most of all, for hope. They have become totally dependent on the government for basic necessities, the same government that made so many promises and broke them all. The governor stands on a city street impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, carrying a shiny, expensive megaphone. His eyes are calculating, his smile practiced. He is charismatic but cold. He knows how to mimic empathy, but his true loyalties are to power and influence. The governor implemented many of his socialist policies while mayor of New York City not so long ago. Subsidized housing, rent control, government-run grocery stores, free healthcare, free transportation, free childcare. What more could people want? It sounded too good to be true, and sure enough it was. The governor lives in a rent-controlled high-rise with a doorman, a fully equipped gym, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. It's one of the few buildings in the city that is well maintained. Most have been condemned or fallen into disrepair. The governor first ran for political office when he was only 29, was the mayor of New York City in his 30s, and became governor before he was even 40. He didn't enter politics out of empathy or a desire to help others, but because he saw opportunity to amass power. He positioned himself as a champion of the people. He used progressive language and divisive rhetoric to build a political base. He claims he is a democratic socialist, but many think he is a communist. Perhaps he had good intentions. We will never know for sure. What we do know is that his policies have caused a lot more harm than good. The masses are becoming more and more dependent on the government and on him. The end goal, to control everyone and everything, is within reach. As he looks at the people waiting in line at the government-run grocery store, he remembers the old adage, "He who controls the food controls the people." A man named John stands near the entrance waiting for his number to be called. John is on crutches. John used to run, not for sport, not for fun, just fast enough to catch the bus, fast enough to get to work and clock in before his boss would have to dock his pay. John was a maintenance man at a city-run complex, making repairs and replacing light bulbs in hallways that have been dark for years. The injury happened on a Tuesday. The bus was late again. When it finally arrived, it groaned like an old man with a bad back and failing knees. John squeezed in and grabbed the overhead rail. The driver hit a pothole and the bus jolted. The floor buckled. John fell and broke his leg. He went to the clinic, but government health care? What a joke. It might be free, but there aren't enough doctors or nurses. Most of the healthcare workers left the city long ago. The clinic has a waiting list longer than the unemployment office. As John stands outside the store, his crutches biting into his palms, he glances at the man with the megaphone. The governor is making promises again. "Free buses for all," the governor shouts. John shifts his weight. The irony is sharp. Sure, the bus was free, but it had cost him everything. John looks at the long line in front of the market, then glances at two women sitting by a tent. If he manages to get a loaf of bread, he will share it with them. Layla and Soraya met at the Co-op Cafe on a cold morning back in January. Layla is a teacher. She teaches literature at a charter school in Queens. The classrooms are empty now, but it was not always that way. The job was everything she had hoped for when she moved to New York. Meaningful, creative, alive. But the pay barely covered rent, and when her building was condemned due to years of neglect, she was forced out. The city gave her a housing voucher. It felt like hope at first, but there aren't enough apartments. Developers stopped building when rent control expanded, citing profit loss and red tape. Every place she called was either full or being torn down. So Layla packed her books and moved into a tent. The voucher sat folded in her coat pocket, a symbol of good intentions gone bad. Soraya works in healthcare. She is a certified nursing assistant at a government-run clinic. The work is relentless. 12-hour shifts, no overtime pay, and barely enough staff to keep the doors open. Soraya's salary isn't bad, but after taxes, there's not much left. Why work at all, she thought. She was better off before they increased wages. Now she can no longer afford rent. So she gives up her apartment and moves in with Layla. The two sit side by side watching the line at the government-run market stretch down the street as far as they can see. They watch the governor shout into his megaphone, promising dignity and reform, bellowing, "Free food for all." "He speaks like a man who's never wanted for anything," Layla murmurs. Soraya nods. They don't trust him. They'd learned that promises were plentiful, especially during election season. But once the votes were counted, those promises vanished like steam from a sidewalk grate. John hobbles over to the two women. He got the last loaf of bread at the market. He sits down on the curb, leaning against his crutches. Layla and Soraya sit down with him. The three of them share the bread in silence. They see a man in a tattered coat that's much too large for his thin frame. He seems confused, bewildered. His name is Preston. Preston Langford has a corner office in a high-rise in the financial district with a view of the Statue of Liberty. He trades futures and mortgage-backed securities, and he made a lot of money doing it. Then came the shift. The city expanded its public services. Free buses, free childcare, subsidized housing, rent control, government-run grocery stores. And of course, higher taxes. Preston didn't mind the idea. He even voted for it. But when the tax hikes hit, they hit hard. Capital gains, luxury levies, surtaxes on high-income earners. Most of the wealthy fled the city as a result. His firm downsized, his bonuses vanished. His salary is negligible, but he is better off than most. At least he still has a job. For how long, he doesn't know. Preston sleeps at the office. So do many of his co-workers. First he sold the summer home, then the car, then the condo. Now he stands outside the government market, wearing a coat that used to belong to his doorman. He can see the co-op cafe in the distance. He watches the governor speak into the megaphone, promising equity and justice. "Funny," he mutters to no one. "I probably paid for that megaphone." The woman next to him turns slightly, her baby asleep in her arms. She doesn't respond. He doesn't expect her to. Her name is Mary. Layla's and Soraya's tent looms nearby. Preston thinks about it. Not yet. Not today. Maybe next week. For now, he adjusts his collar and stares at the skyline. The Statue of Liberty is still there, but it looks further away than it used to. Mary shifts her weight, careful not to wake her daughter. The baby's breath is warm and steady. Mary envies it. The line hasn't moved in nearly an hour. People are leaving empty-handed. Mary heard that supplies were low again. Maybe today they'll have diapers or powdered milk. Maybe not. Then came the voice. The governor's voice. It cuts like a knife. Crisp, rehearsed, amplified. He stands there proudly, his tailored suit untouched by the grit and grime that clings to everyone else. "Today we reaffirm our commitment to the people," he declares loudly. "Free childcare, public housing, food security. These are not privileges, they are rights." Mary doesn't clap. She turns to the woman next to her, an older lady wearing a scarf. "Do you believe him?" Mary asks. The old woman shrugs. "I believe he believes in being believed." Mary doesn't know what tomorrow will bring, but she knows this. The line will still be here, and so will she. Mary glances at the co-op cafe and sees Charlotte looking out the window. Mary wonders if they have any milk. Charlotte Winthrop grew up on the Upper East Side, attended Dalton, then Wellesley. She interned at a literary magazine that published essays no one read, but everyone quoted. Her family had old money. Charlotte met Preston Langford at a fundraiser for the arts. They bonded over espresso and a mutual disdain for bad architecture. Every Thursday they met at Bean and Bloom, the upscale coffee shop that now bears the name Co-op Cafe. Back then the coffee was single origin, the milk was oat, and the pastries were flown in from a bakery in Vermont. Now Charlotte works behind the counter. The espresso machine wheezes like an asthmatic accordion. They reuse coffee grounds to stretch the supply, and milk is powdered when they're lucky enough to have it. The governor's voice echoes from the street. Promises, reform, equity, social change. Charlotte has heard it all before. She had hosted campaign fundraisers, watching candidates pivot from charm to policy with surgical precision. Charlotte looks out the window and sees Preston outside the government-run grocery store. He looks thinner. The coat seems familiar. His doorman's, she guesses. Preston shifts his weight. He glances towards the cafe, then looks away. He doesn't see her. Or maybe he does and chooses not to. Charlotte doesn't wave. She doesn't smile. She just turns back to the counter and adds a bit of powdered milk to her coffee.